Could we get the dais mics unmuted?
So she's starting it. Now she has a torn leg. She's a little tendon in your depth that holds your femur into the, so she's having that rebuilt or replaced or.
You can just do a verbal. Is there consensus?
Sure. Yeah, my son will be here. My son's doing something this next week. So I'll be here all week.
You're fine.
West in the Navy. A lot of times. She's good.
After I read it. Uh-huh.
Good in the Navy.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. After the motion.
But she does that in San Diego. Yeah. I tag along on that. Sure.
I believe we are ready when you are. Not rushing you. Fine.
The recording pause, is that okay? No, it's not okay.
Never.
We're live. Oh, I understood.
It does say pause.
Good evening. I'd like to call to order the City Council regular meeting. The date is May 2nd, 2023, and the time is 5:32 p.m. We'll start with a City Council roll call.
Councilor Bosman's,
Present.
Mayor Pro Tem Buell,
Here.
Councilor Woodruff,
Here.
Councilor Yazzie,
Here.
and Melissa Youssef.
Here, thank you.
Okay, next up, we have the introduction of the translator. Is the translator on?
Hi there. Yes, here we are. Hi, my name is Valentina. I'm here with my colleague Vidya, both on behalf of Community Language Cooperative, and we're here to provide and guarantee your commitment to language justice. We remind everyone that is on Zoom that interpretation will be available. And for those of you that decide to speak in English during this meeting, please keep in mind that Spanish is 20 to 25% longer than English. The interpretation services will be available by clicking on the globe button that is on the lower bar of your screen. Hola a todos, a todas y a todos. Buenas tardes. Mi nombre es Valentina y estoy aquí con mi colega Viria, ambas por parte de Community Language Cooperative, para ofrecerles y garantizar su compromiso con la justicia del lenguaje. El servicio de interpretación en español estará disponible a partir de Zoom por medio del botón que aparece un globo terráqueo en la barra inferior de su pantalla. Si está en esta sesión por medio de un teléfono o una tableta, encontrará las mismas opciones haciendo clic en el botón que tiene 3 puntos en la esquina inferior derecha de su pantalla. Muchas gracias por tenernos aquí. Podemos activar los canales de interpretación. Thank you so much for having us here. We can go ahead and turn the interpretation channels on.
Excellent, thank you. Next up is identification of actual or perceived conflicts of interest. Does anyone on council have any conflicts of interest today? No. Okay.
No, I don't either, Mayor.
Thank you. All right, item 5, proclamations and presentations. Before I start, I was wondering if council agrees. I'd like to add in one more proclamation into the public record for small business. It's called, National Small Business Week 2023. I'm going to be presenting this tomorrow at the Small Business Conference, but I thought it would be great to put it into public record if council is agreeable. Yes, yes.
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so do I go up there? What do I do for, I can just do it here because I'm giving it to you for both of them? Okay, great. All right. You get to hear my voice for a hot minute now. Here we go. It is the 54th Annual Professional Municipal Clerks Week, which is April 30th to May 6th, 2023. Whereas the Office of the Professional Municipal Clerk, a time-honored and vital part of the local government, exists throughout the world. Whereas the Office of the Professional Municipal Clerk is the oldest among public servants. Whereas the Office of the Professional Municipal Clerk provides the professional link between the citizens, the local governing bodies, and agencies of government at other levels. And whereas professional municipal clerks have pledged to be ever mindful in their neutrality and impartiality, rendering equal service to all. Whereas the professional municipal clerk serves as the information center on functions of local government and community. Whereas professional municipal clerks continually strive to improve the administration of the affairs of the Office of the Professional Municipal Clerk through participation in education programs, seminars, workshops, and the annual meetings of their state, provincial, county, and international professional organizations. Whereas it is the most appropriate that we recognize the accomplishments of the Office of the Professional Municipal Clerk. Now, therefore, I, Jessica Buell, Mayor Pro Tem of Durango, do recognize the week of April 30th through May 6, 2023 as Professional Municipal Clerks Week, and further extend appreciation to all professional municipal clerks for the vital services they perform and their exemplary dedication to the communities they represent. Thank you, Ms. Faye Harmer. I appreciate all your work that you do for us.
Thank you. So Professional Municipal Clerks Week is being celebrated nationally this week. It is the 45th year of this proclamation. And I just want to take this opportunity to thank the team we have here at our clerk's office in Durango. I was lucky enough to be promoted internally to city clerk just over a year ago. And our team has taken on reorganizing our department, reorganizing our workload, and really cross-training between all of our departments, including the newly added municipal court. So, and I can honestly say that we have a very strong team spirit, and we are very fortunate to have such a great team, and I'm fortunate to lead them.
And we are very fortunate to have you. Thank you so much. Okay, the next one is National Small Business Week 2023 proclamation. Whereas America's strongest economic growth in almost 40 years has been driven by the resilience of our small business that, despite a worldwide pandemic, continues to pioneer innovative solutions to our country's greatest challenges and create opportunities for families and workers. And whereas small businesses remain the heartbeat of our communities and the American economy, employing more than half of our nation's workers, inventing and innovating to launch new technologies and create new American-led industries, enriching our main streets, making parts and products in America to fuel our supply chains, and building our nation's infrastructure. And whereas historic investments made through the President's American Rescue Plan, Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act, CHIPS and Science Art, and Inflation Reduction Act will ensure small businesses have access to federal capital support, technical assistance, contracting opportunities, and other resources to help lead the way as we rebuild America's roads and bridges and build a clean energy economy for the future. And whereas when we support small businesses, jobs are created and local communities preserve their unique culture. And whereas entrepreneurship continues to be one of the best pathways to the American dream, evidenced by the remarkable small business boom, with more than 10.5 million Americans applying to start a business since January 20th, 2021, more than any other two-year period in American history. And whereas by renewing our commitment to supporting small businesses, we can maintain our global competitiveness and build a stronger nation where everyone can succeed from the bottom up and middle out. And whereas the President of the United States has proclaimed National Small Business Week every year since 1963 to highlight the programs and services available to entrepreneurs through the U.S. Small Business Administration and other government agencies. And whereas the city of Durango supports and joins in this national effort to recognize the contributions of small business to the American economy and their importance to ensuring that our local communities remain as vibrant tomorrow as they are today. Now therefore, I, Jessica Buell, Mayor Pro Tem of the City of Durango, do hereby proclaim April 30th through May 6th, 2023 as National Small Business Week. Okay. So many papers. Okay. Next is public participation. This section of the agenda is set aside for the public to provide 3 minutes of comments regarding items that are not scheduled for a hearing or public testimony, or that do not otherwise appear on this agenda. City Council will not respond to questions from the dais. Citizens should address their comments directly to City Council. As this is a hybrid meeting, the avenues for public participation have been adjusted. All written comments received by the city clerk by noon today have been delivered to council and will be summarized in the meeting minutes. Do we have anyone for public participation?
One is signed up.
Is there anyone in the attendees list with their hand raised for public participation?
No, it doesn't appear there is.
Okay, well, then there we go. Moving on to the next one. We are on to item 7, city operational updates. City manager?
Yes, I do have one update. I'm going to ask Devin Schmidt, our acting chief financial officer, to come and publicly present some exciting news that we received.
Good evening, Mayor and Council, Devin Schmidt, acting CFO. I wanted to just take a moment to present to council that the city of Durango did receive the Government Finance Officers Association Distinguished Budget Presentation Award for its 2023 budget. This award is given to governments that demonstrate excellence in budget presentation. The recognition is really a testament to the work and dedication of our finance department. And so I really want to give the kudos to them and all their efforts to put forth the 2023 budget, as well as all the department directors that participate in that process with the budget team. Just a little bit about the award. It's the highest honor bestowed by the Finance Officers Association. The award is given to governments that meet the higher standards of budget presentation, and to receive the award, the government must demonstrate a clear understanding of the budget process, prepare a budget that is accurate, complete, and understandable, communicate the budget to the public in a clear and concise manner. And one other piece that I wanted to congratulate the team on was that the reviewers found that the budget was well organized, easy to understand, and the city was also identified as outstanding in several areas by the review committee. Specifically, all 3 reviewers found that strategic goals and strategies to be outstanding. So just wanted to pass that along and congratulate the finance department and the city of Durango for this prestigious award.
Thank you, Devin, and thank you to your team and mayor and council. Just another step in the direction of continuing our journey for financial excellence, one that does not stop, but we continue to improve and continue to strive for more and more recognition in regards to how our budget's presented and the information that's presented in it, and especially intertwining it with our strategic plan and our strategic goals, which is something that not very many organizations do very well. So getting to be highlighted on that is just another kudos to the council for that direction, and then also to the financial staff for putting that into play and practice.
Thank you.
Thank you, Devin. Yes, yes, no, oh, wait, are we gonna, yes. Okay, next up, 7.2, City Inclusive Entrepreneurship Program Update. Got Tommy Crosby.
Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem and councilors. My name is Tommy Crosby. I'm the Economic Opportunity. Oops. Sorry. Thank you. I'm the Economic Opportunity Manager here at the City of Durango in our Community Development Department. I'm here this evening to provide an update on the National League of Cities City Inclusive Entrepreneurship Program. It's a mouthful, so I'm just going to refer to it as the CIE program during my presentation tonight. For those of you who I have not yet met, again, my name is Tommy. I oversee our Economic Opportunity Division. There's a few main pillars that make up this division. One of those kind of being the most important, I try to act as the liaison between the city of Durango and our local business community. I try to make life as easy as possible for our small business owners here in Durango as they navigate any and all city channels. Another one of those pillars is our Urban Renewal Authority. We have two targeted strategic redevelopment zones in Durango that are referred to as the URAs, one in North Main and one in Midtown. And then last, I act as the city liaison to the Creative Economy Commission. So I refer to that as really any and all things public art. We oversee programs like the Durango Creates Grant and the Lodgers Tax Arts and Culture Grant. Just wanted to give you a quick snapshot of where the CIE program is coming from. So what is the City Inclusive Entrepreneurship Program? It is a program of the National League of Cities. They are an organization that has been around for about 100 years, and the CIE program is nestled under their umbrella. They work with cities across the United States on a program that you need to apply to. So this past year, the city of Durango was accepted into the CIE program with 55 other cities from across the US. And the goal of this CIE program is to help provide guidance to cities to better create policies, programs, and practices that drive inclusive entrepreneurship-led growth in our communities. And they do that in a few ways. The first one is they help these communities who are participating create a shared vision with local stakeholders to rally around. They help give friendly nudges to be leaders in the innovation economy. The way that I like to look at the innovation economy is how can we poke good holes? And then they work to successfully connect communities with the right resources, partners, and information to help reach the needs of the communities that they're working within. I want to highlight a couple of strategic plan goals that the CIE program kind of targets. One of those is the diversity, equity, and inclusion goal, and then paired with the affordability and economic opportunity. The CIE program is really creating an overlap with these two strategic plan goals that we haven't yet seen. And it's really exciting to see the different ways that this is going to tease out new opportunities for these two strategic plan goals. So why CIE? Why did we decide to pursue participation in this program? Simply put, it's that idea of bringing equity into economic growth. We want to expand economic opportunity to all parts of our community here in Durango. The way that I like to think about this is our goal with an economic opportunity is to create a community where everyone can bear the fruits of economic opportunity, that where folks can have better more livable wages, easier access to childcare or housing, a more robust savings account that spills over into things that bring them joy and fun, like going on a vacation with your family. So that's really the main driver of why we decided to participate in the CIE program. Again, bringing equity into economic growth and providing opportunities for all communities within Durango. So how are we going about doing this? Great question. The CIE program is broken out into different tracks or cohorts. We decided to participate in the Ecosystem Accelerator cohort. And we approached this through the lens of working with food businesses and food business entrepreneurs. So the first step that we took was convening a food business work group. This work group meets every 2 weeks. They're the drivers behind the CIE program. Just this last month, the food business work group was awarded $15,000 in grant funding through the National League of Cities to help develop and deploy the Ecosystem Accelerator program. We work alongside 15 other cities from across the US who are in this Ecosystem Accelerator cohort, working on similar but different projects, all within kind of we all more or less have the same guardrails that we're working in and being nudged along by National League of Cities. And then we also have access to expert one-on-one consulting to help us find a way forward for this program specific to Durango. And then I'll touch on this last point a bit later about, we just completed an extensive assessment of the food business landscape in Durango that has really helped guide the direction that we're taking this program and those deliverables and outcomes. So I want to take a moment to highlight who's been working on this project. So we've approached this CIE program as kind of a hub and spoke model. The organization taking on that hub role, that main leadership role, is the La Plata Food Equity Coalition. They've really stepped up and gone above and beyond when it comes to convening various local partners around this food business work group and CIE program. We're trying to have the end result be, we can direct food business entrepreneurs to a single resource, being the La Plata Food Equity Coalition, and then they make those warm handoffs to organizations like the City of Durango, the Good Food Collective, Small Business Development Center, SCAPE, all of those organizations who are working as spokes. So reinforcing that hub and making sure the wheel continues to move forward, bringing in their expertise and their resources, making sure we're not duplicating any efforts, only enhancing one another's work. So like I mentioned, we just completed a big assessment of kind of the food business landscape here in Durango and La Plata County. We received just shy of 60 responses, and I want to take a moment to highlight who those responses came from, because it was very intentional, the communities that were reached out to. We wanted to intentionally amplify the voices and the needs of communities that might not always be at the forefront of economic development in Durango. So you can see that 60% of those survey respondents came from women-owned businesses, 20% from BIPOC-owned food businesses, and 15% from immigrant-owned food businesses. Again, baked into the foundation of the CIE program is that idea of bringing equity into economic development and economic growth. We believe that when you bring in different perspectives, you get different outcomes, and those outcomes better represent Durango as a whole, rather than a select few who might otherwise drive what economic growth looks like in our community. So I really do want to dwell on who's leading the efforts and needs behind this program. From those 58 responses, we identified 3 top needs, and those have kind of set the goals and priorities that are driving the CIE program. The biggest one being a business resource directory. Where do I go? Who do I talk to? How do I get what I need to get done? The second one is access to grants and funding opportunities. And then the third being networking and learning opportunities. So what our food business work group has done is we've taken those 3 needs and we've tried to create some quick action items where we can really quickly ripple out into some actionable outcomes to address some of those needs. So this week we just wrapped up 2 food business safety trainings, one in Spanish, one in English, addressing that need that's shown on this last slide for networking and learning opportunities. In a couple weeks, we have a language justice training. Then in mid-June, I'll be facilitating a local funding resource training that brings together funding partners locally, regionally, statewide, and federally on how businesses can best take advantage of that here in Durango and La Plata. I'm excited to highlight that the West Slope Startup Week will be coming to Durango in near the end of August. We've been working closely with them to make sure that the content that they're including is relevant to folks in our food business entrepreneurship kind of survey group and the folks that we're working with through the CIE program. That'll look like having translation services at events, potentially adding things like childcare for certain events, making these learning opportunities a bit more accessible. And on that note, I just want to highlight we've been using some of that $15,000 in grant funding to provide stipends to support participation in these learning and networking opportunities that can look like covering the cost of transportation to and from an event, or providing someone with a stipend for childcare so they have the opportunity to step away from the home and attend an event. And then last but not least, the end of August, we'll come up with the launch of that business resource directory. So this is going to be a living, breathing document that does try to meet the needs of our food business entrepreneurs, I want to learn QuickBooks. I want to have better finance and reporting. I've heard the city of Durango has been so good at that lately. So how do we emulate that? We'll send them to our business directory. Where do I go if I need a hood vent inspected, or I need potentially some grant funding for a new front facade? So that business resource directory is really going to try to act as best we can, that one-stop shop to direct businesses to, again, to try to address that need, that number one need of coming up with some sort of business resource directory. So that's really it for my update tonight. I'll be coming back to council after this program wraps up in late August, likely sometime in mid-September for that final update. But if folks do have questions, I'd be happy to answer those at this time.
Council, any questions, comments?
This is awesome. Obviously, food and food production is near and dear to my heart. So great job with addressing economic growth along with getting everybody on board with equity and food equity. When you're coming up with a business directory, are you utilizing other assets within the community to kind of drive some of those conversations to get like a more holistic and kind of 10,000 foot view?
Yes, in the sense that we're trying to not reinvent the wheel. If we know there's a community partner like In the Weeds who offers resources for service workers that are part of this food business ecosystem, trying to utilize the resources that they've already built out, instead of us trying to dive in and say, hey, you have to meet this criteria, you have to fit this fit within this box to be part of this directory. I think in that sense, we're trying to utilize what's already out there and not reinvent the wheel. Did that kind of answer your question?
Yeah, just with the Restaurant Association, In the Weeds, and other kind of food service and equity organizations, I think there's a good opportunity to kind of find some synergy and disseminate information. So that's awesome.
Any other comments? Or Tommy, I just want to say that your creativity in responding to the needs of our community, I'm just thinking back to like the Creative Economy Commission and artists needing, QuickBooks business help in general. And then it's just phenomenal. And so thank you so much for your hard work and your creativity. I really appreciate it. So
Thank you.
yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Next up. Yes, it's on. Is 7.3 operational update from Visit Durango for 2022 year in review and results from community engagement project. Rachel Brown.
Good evening, Mayor Youssef and councilors, and congratulations and welcome to the new councilors. So I come here on a quarterly basis to give a Visit Durango update. This will actually be our year in review update for 2022. So you'll see me here around every 3 months. I'm Rachel Brown. I'm the executive director of Visit Durango. We are the 501c6 nonprofit destination management and marketing organization for Durango and La Plata County. And we are contracted with the city for sustainable tourism, destination management, marketing services, as well as operating the Durango Welcome Center. And I'll start off with a few quick points. Visit Durango represents, partners with, and helps with marketing for over 700 businesses in La Plata County. Some are obvious, like you might think of a hotel or a major attraction, but some are less obvious, like agritourism, retail, and local nonprofits. I also like to point out that according to the latest Region 9 economic study of the area, 27% of jobs in La Plata County are in the tourism sector, so a very large sector of our economy. And then just a quick point about the tourism surge that we are experiencing. So due to pent-up demand, travel deals, lower gas prices, and a number of other factors, we are experiencing a short-term surge in travel right now. But this is not expected to continue forever. Honestly, probably not even until the end of this year. So just a quick point that we want to stay competitive and maintain brand awareness in the marketplace. And with tracking visitation, a very important key performance indicator for our business is tracking accommodations for the visitor industry. There's a few acronyms up here that I will define. ADR is average daily rate. That is the rate that a visitor comes and pays when they stay in a hotel. Occupancy is just how occupied is the hotel overall. And RevPAR is revenue per available room. You can see from the graphs up top that we identified the off-peak season as November through April. And you can see with those peaks and valleys why those are the times that we identify. Overall, our performance was strong last year for accommodations for both hotels and short-term rentals. That first line there is hotels. The second line is short-term rentals. We had a 3% growth in occupancy rate for hotels and a 4% occupancy rate growth for short-term rentals. I would say this is a healthy but not extreme level of growth that we were happy to see. With our visitor research software, we track demographics of the visitors to the region. So our average visitor, if you're curious, is from out of state. They're age 45 to 64. They are a 3 to 5 person household income of $100,000, and they have a bachelor's degree. Something a lot of people find interesting and maybe surprising is that our average length of stay is 3.1 nights. Most people think of us as a day trip, a night, maybe a weekend, but 3.1 is our average length of stay. And Thursday, Friday, and Saturday are our most visited days of the week. Wednesday is the least visited. Another couple wins I want to share with you all. One is that we use a tracking software called Tourism Sentiment Index. They measure all the online conversations about travel and destinations in the world. And they make a list every year of the most loved destinations in the world. And what this really means is these destinations are delivering on their brand promise. And I'm happy to report that we had a score of 25.7, which puts us in the world at number 67, in the US at the number 15 destination, and in Colorado for the second year in a row, we are the #1 most loved destination. So that's something we can all be proud of. Another piece I wanted to share related to this slide is we're pursuing a Mountain Ideal certification. And this is the highest sustainability certification that a mountain destination can receive. For that reason, it's a 3-year process. So we're currently in year 2 of the process right now. But part of that process is this destination sustainability scorecard. They want to give you a score so you can see, areas where you might be lacking and improve upon those to ultimately get the certification. And you can see here, we're scoring outstanding in a couple categories: destination management, as well as environment and climate. And we're scoring meets expectations in social well-being, business and communication, and nature and scenery. And another part of this process is a competition called Green Destination Stories, where you submit a case study to try and get an award for a green destination project happening in your destination. And I'm happy to report that we did also win a Green Destination Stories, and that is related to the next slide. It was an award for this project, which was our stakeholder engagement project. This project took 10 months last year. Our sustainability and policy manager basically did a mini SWOT analysis with 12 different stakeholder groups in the community. About 50 businesses and nonprofits participated in that. And there were also 5 resident town halls throughout the county. Had about 25 total residents participate in that as well. Thank you to Tom, who sent out the full report to you earlier, so you have that in your email. I encourage you to check it out. It's lengthy and it could be its own presentation, so I'll just leave you with some highlights here today. The process did focus on the major pillars of sustainability, which are economic, environmental, and social. And just to give you an example, the groups identified a major economic strength is Fort Lewis College. An environmental risk we're facing is drought, no surprise there. And a social opportunity is more multicultural events. So if that's of interest to you, I encourage you to dive into that a bit deeper. Moving on to our marketing. This is a list of all the tactics and platforms we use for paid and organic marketing. You can see here that we do focus more heavily on digital these days. That's just the trend and smart use of dollars, but we still do a little bit of print advertising as well. The pluses indicate an area that we increased our spend last year, and the minuses indicate an area where we pulled back on budget last year. And you can see from just our paid advertising, we had almost 40 million impressions and 263,000 engagements. And here are some samples of our marketing pieces from last year. I believe there's 8 shown up here. This is just a slice. Last year, I think we had a total of over 5,000 marketing pieces produced in the year, but to give you a little bit of the flavor. And last year, a change we made as well was when working with our photographers locally, we really encourage them that when they're out on shoots to not just get a generic skiing photo or dining photo that could take place anywhere in Colorado. We really want them to capture images and videography that is distinctly Durango, could not happen anywhere but here. So that middle image on the mountain bike is just an example of that kind of content. Moving on to public relations or PR coverage. Last year, our team pitched over 100 domestic and international media and journalists, and we set a record and hosted 22 familiarization tours where the media actually came to Durango and experienced it firsthand and had a lot of amazing coverage. Some clips are up there for you to see. Just one example is an Australian journalist wrote an article for Escape about our Western heritage. You can also see the logos of some of our top coverage from last year, and that viewership, if you total every mention of Durango and La Plata County in all publications, was at 402 million last year. Moving on to the Lodgers Tax Local Event Marketing Grant. This is a grant that was created last year, and I'm proud to say that we did award all $120,000 of that marketing grant, and it went to, I believe, 40 businesses, nonprofits, and event organizers in town. Up there are the logos of some of those businesses and nonprofits that received the grant. And this year we have increased the grant due to demand to $180,000. So we'll be able to award even more deserving events of those funds. And part of the local event budget also funds our annual programmatic event campaigns, like Spoketober, which was our month-long celebration of all things cycling in October, Holiday Station, which was around the holidays, and then bleeding into this year a little bit. Hopefully you saw in April, we had our first ever Durango Restaurant Week, and we're also planning an art week in September. And of course, last but not least, the Durango Welcome Center. This year we welcomed almost 100,000 people through the doors at 8th and Main, and assisted our frontline hospitality staff. They assist visitors as they come in, giving out brochures, maps, recommendations. Fun fact, the thing they get asked about the most is local events happening in town. So there were over 10,000 assists to local visitors. And I don't know if any of you remember, the Welcome Center used to be at Santa Rita, and it's been at 8th and Main for about 10 years now. And this year we actually welcomed our millionth visitor through the doors. So that was an exciting milestone. And the Welcome Center is a partnership between Visit Durango, the City of Durango, the Business Improvement District, Fort Lewis College, and then most recently, we gave space this summer to San Juan Mountain Association and Durango Trails so that they could educate visitors about responsible trail usage, backcountry safety, general sustainability practices. And that sums it up, a year in 13 slides. So obviously there's a lot more to report on. You guys have the full reports there. They can also be downloaded off our website. There's a QR code there. And then just a quick plug, I would encourage everyone to sign up for our resident engagement platform, engage.durango.org. And are there any questions, comments, or feedback?
Thank you, Rachel. I'm real impressed by all the statistics you presented here, and actually the photos were just very dramatic and dynamic about Durango. So 1 million visitors through the visitor center, that's impressive. Thank you so much for coming down and presenting that to us.
Other counselors?
Good work.
Thanks, Rachel. We appreciate hearing from you.
I have one question. For the marketing grant, you said $120,000 was awarded. How much was requested? How many, you know? You might not know off the top of your head.
I would have to get back to you on an exact number. I can look that up. I know that a majority of people that were turned down, it was because they either like didn't have an event taking place in the city of Durango, or it wasn't really like a true event that we're trying to fund with these grants. But I will say that the word is out and a lot more people have started applying for it this year. So we're confident that the 180,000 will be fully distributed.
Would you mind sending us an email about how much was requested? Just because I know with like the CEC and the lodger's tax and then the Durango Creates, like we're getting way more requests than we have funding for. And some of them are events that are coming to us. And so I just wanted to know like how much is being requested from you? How much money do you have left? Just to kind of fill in those gaps. Thank you. And thank you for, that was a great presentation. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Can I do a little cleanup before you move to consent agenda?
Yeah.
Thanks. At the very beginning of the meeting, it happened really, really fast, but there was a motion to amend the agenda to add a proclamation as 5.2. It was moved by the Mayor Pro Tem Buell and seconded by the Mayor Youssef, and it was unanimously passed. And then, of course, the proclamation was read into the record.
Yes.
And the minutes, and it's official.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Next up is item 8, the review of the consent agenda. May we, I have to read it. The consent agenda is intended to allow the city council by a single motion to approve matters that are considered routine or non-controversial. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless a council member requests an item be removed from the consent agenda and considered separately. Items removed from the consent agenda will be considered under agenda item 9. May we have the reading of the consent agenda?
Item 8.1 is approval of minutes of the April 17th, 2023 City Council, La Plata County Commission Joint Study Session. 8.2 is approval of minutes of the April 18th, 2023 City Council Special Meeting. 8.3 is approval of minutes of the April 18th, 2023 City Council Regular Meeting. And 8.4 is a final reading of ordinance 0/2023-0010 to adopt an increase to the Durango Fire Protection District impact fees.
Thank you. Does any counselor wish to remove an item? Do I have a motion?
I move to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Any discussion? Do I discuss now? No, discuss later.
No one signed up for
Okay.
public discussion, so that part's over. So you
Okay.
can discuss it.
And then discuss? Okay. Roll.
Consent agenda.
You don't?
You don't.
Okay.
I'll give everybody the opportunity.
This is my first time, y'all. I'm figuring it out. Thanks so much.
Councilor Bosman's,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Buell,
Yes.
Councilor Woodruff,
Yes.
Councilor Yazzie,
Yes.
and Mayor Youssef.
Yes.
Okay, that takes us to, there's no public hearings, no introduction of ordinances. And so we are at item 13, general business items. 13.1, discussion and possible action regarding the establishment of boards and commissions, interview teams, and assigning council liaisons. And this is, who's this? Oh, okay.
Do you want me to start, Mayor Pro Tem?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, so council team, I sent out just a draft start to help us begin this discussion, because sometimes these discussions get difficult when we are live on the dais trying to make scheduling events happen. Anyway, you have a draft in front of you that I had emailed earlier today for consideration, and we can potentially, if it works and if council so desires, begin with that and amend as desired by council, as it's a starting point in any case, trying to facilitate that discussion.
Mayor Youssef, I want to say thank you for taking the time to throw this together. It is super helpful to have a starting point, and I see no issues with it, and I appreciate your thought going into it, so I'm fine. Do any other counselors have anything to add? No. Okay, so do we support the interview teams that Mayor Youssef has proposed? I don't think we need, do we need it? I don't think we need a motion. I think we just need approval, right? To approve the interview teams?
You're a little bit of no man's land from where I come from. If you want to take any official action, you need to have a motion, a second, and then a vote on it.
Okay.
If it's a non-action item, and I can't discern because I haven't been here long enough to know if this is an action item or not. But if you're taking an official action, it needs a vote.
So to dot our i's and cross our t's, we should just take a vote.
Well, but what is the action?
To approve the interview teams as distributed by Mayor Youssef.
Okay, and that's been properly advertised on the agenda.
Yes.
If that's being the case, I would ask that someone bring a motion to
Okay.
do what you just said, which is approve the action teams, request a second, and then have discussion and a vote on it.
Excellent.
Okay, I'm going to make the motion to approve the teams suggested in the memo that was passed around. And
So you've
that's it.
moved, and you need a second.
Do we have a second?
You can second as the chair if you want to,
I'll second.
and then you ask for discussion.
Okay, discussion. Okay, the vote.
Counselor Bosman's,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Buell,
Yes.
Counselor Woodruff,
Yes.
Counselor Yazzie,
yes,
Mayor Youssef.
Yes, and thank you, team.
Okay, that gets us to 13.2, discussion and possible action regarding a resolution supporting the Colorado Communities for Climate Action, CC4CA, 2023 policy statement updates as a member community. And we have Marty Poole. You're a popular guy today.
So again, I'm going to recommend that we get an actual motion on the floor and then have discussion. And of course, you can get the motion on the floor, you can have a presentation, then you can have discussion. But to properly present this at the public, you need to have a motion on the floor. So right now.
Make a motion
Uh,
for, motion for him to present or for the discussion to take place?
Well, what's the action that would result? Okay, so someone's got to say,
There's no resolution. Oh, there's.
I'll make the motion. I make the motion to discuss possible action regarding the resolution supporting the Colorado Communities for Climate Change Action, CC4CA, presented by Marty Poole.
okay, so if there's not going to be an action, if there's just going to be a discussion, it's a non-action item and we don't have to go through the formality of a motion. You just want to discuss something, you can discuss it, but if there's going to be any action at the end, there needs to be a motion on the floor at the beginning.
And I think that the action at the end is to approve the budget appropriation for the EPC. Oh, that's what's up there right now.
Is a separate, that's the next.
That's the
item.
next one.
This is, so this, what got pulled up, the presentation.
It's the wrong one.
There is a resolution to approve the
Yes.
policy statement from this association that we are a member of. So there is an action.
Okay, so the action item would be to approve the resolution as presented by the staff.
Yes, to approve the resolution supporting the Colorado Communities Climate Action 2023 policy statement.
That's perfect.
Second,
Discussion, which includes the presentation.
Let him do his presentation
Okay.
now and then do discussion.
All right. Nope.
Since, so-
Thank you, Council, Mayor Youssef, Marty Poole, Sustainability Manager in the City Manager's Office. So I'll give a brief background on CC4CA and our membership thus far and the process of a member community updating the policy statement and why this is coming before you today. So our membership in Colorado Communities for Climate Action, CC4CA, supports our environmental sustainability and resilience strategic plan objectives. Most specifically, being a part of an organization that advocates for climate action and policies at the state and federal level. It also strengthens our network among other Colorado communities that also are concerned about this issue. And then a lot of professional development and networking through staff and other elected officials on this topic. So CC4CA is a coalition of communities and municipalities advocating for strong state and federal climate policies. Its member communities understand that climate change poses unique and severe risks, and that individual communities cannot achieve our local climate goals without effective state and federal policies. We take that as a foundational given of our membership. Member communities, every member community has a seat and a vote on the CC4CA board. So when you see me mention the board, it is comprised of every single member community, and members pay various dues depending on their size and their commitment levels. Right now, Durango has a base commitment level, and in our population, it's $5,000 based on the last dues schedule that may increase in the coming years. But so here's a list of member communities. It's currently sitting at 42. And an exciting thing to point out is that this jurisdiction now represents a full quarter of the state's population. So, representing, again, the need for climate policies at that higher level. Just a quick example of the types of actions that officials can take. So you will receive updates from me periodically about things that CC4CA is doing and actions that you could potentially take as an elected official. That's something I think to review at a time with either, I guess, the attorney or under whatever the appropriate time is to kind of learn about how counselors can take that action. There's actions that individual counselors can take. There's actions that the council can take as a whole. There's actions that we can do to just, go along with CC4CA's general positions. And that's really what we're talking about tonight. But I just wanted to highlight the fact that there are also opportunities to advocate as council members or as a council as a whole. So what is the policy statement and why am I bringing this before you? Well, as an advocacy organization that takes positions on policies or legislation, we need a policy statement that the member communities know what they're signing up for. So the bylaws of CC4CA say that this is brought before member communities every other year. So we joined in 2021 and accepted the policy statement at that time. It's been reviewed by the policy committee and is up for member communities to support or provide feedback on. Just to point out, this has already gone through extensive review from CC4CA staff and the policy committee among CC4CA. So now is our opportunity as a member community to vote to either approve as written or provide very specific comments why Durango couldn't support a certain position on the policy statement. Even if an individual counselor or two has concerns, if the resolution is adopted tonight, that represents Durango's support of the policy statement. So a majority of council would have to agree upon one or more specific concerns to vote against this policy statement if council didn't wish to support it as written. So it really has gone through a really thorough vetting process around climate advocacy. And then the last step is a little bit of a formality, but there's a board retreat in June. Excuse me. Durango can send a representative, or through this resolution, we can say this is just how Durango would vote at that retreat. So pretty formal process, but this is the basis for our inclusion and advocacy efforts. So we want it to be transparent and go through the appropriate adoption process. So the CC4CA policy statement has been provided in your packet, as has the resolution for discussion and potential approval. I will also note that there in that resolution is the opportunity to identify the council member representative to CC4CA, which I believe was discussed as part of the previous item. So if there's any additional conversation about what counselor would want to be the representative to CC4CA over the next 2 years, you can have that discussion separate from the discussion of whether or not you approve the policy statement, and then both are included in the resolution.
Thank you, Marty. The council liaison discussion was put on hold until next city council meeting. So we can touch base on that, but I feel like, did we have a council liaison for that? Or was it just, it was Melissa? That's right. Okay.
It's currently Mayor Youssef, and if she would like to
Mayor
continue,
Youssef.
that would be wonderful. I think you can have that discussion pretty quickly here.
And well, we can also wait until we're looking at all of them, just so we know what we're all responsible for, or do we have to have a liaison to pass this?
So as the resolution is currently written, there's a blank to be filled in. Procedurally, I don't know if we can vote on the resolution and then decide to fill in that last blank at a later date.
I'd just suggest that you amend the resolution to fill in that blank at a later date, and then it's fine. So just a very simple amendment to the resolution as it reads, to take that blank and put in the language, a representative of the council, a liaison representative of the council to be determined at a later date.
Okay.
And you're good to vote on it tonight.
Okay. So the resolution before you is the resolution as written with that change that the attorney just suggested.
Excellent. Okay, now I'll open up for discussion, and just so it's for the record, it's resolution 2023-22 that we're talking about. Council discussion?
I think it's a continuation of a good process. If Mayor Youssef wants to stay on as a liaison, I'm supportive of that. If she is too busy as a mayor, then I'm willing to take on that role as well. And then we can take care of everything at one go.
Thank you, Councillor Bosmans. I appreciate that. I will say I would either tonight or on May 16th, I'd love to have discuss with other councillors if there is interest in this role, because it is something that probably I would not be able to continue. Marty, have you been able to attend the policy committee meetings and or any meetings on the policy statement for 2023 or any of that?
So I I'm not familiar with Durango's seat on any of the, like, CC4CA has a policy committee, it has a legislative committee, it has several committees, and then it has the overall board. I have been Durango's representative on the board, and the way the resolution is stated and the way we've done it previously is that the elected official has all of the responsibilities as a representative to CC4CA, and they also have the authority to grant a staff representative any of those same responsibilities. And so I have been the acting representative, the staff representative to CC4CA when then Councilor Youssef couldn't attend. And at this time, Durango doesn't have any representation on any other, or excuse me, Mayor Youssef, you were on the policy committee for a while, if I'm correct.
For a while I was.
Yeah.
They meet quite often. They really do. They have lots of meetings. The policy committee and the legislative committee, like you said, there's lots of opportunities to get involved in this organization. And it is really important because you're having these statewide discussions on climate action and sustainability. So it's I encourage people to consider it. But like you said, there's multiple different roles that, you know, counselor, if more than one counselor, for example, wanted to participate, there's the legislative committee, the policy committee, and then like you're suggesting, there's the board seat. So lots of opportunities.
And CC4CA is very open to participation. So every member community has different ways that they assign representation and responsibilities for participation in this organization. So if at a future discussion there was more interest, or you had I would imagine that CC4CA would be excited about Durango's participation. So
yeah, and then I would just add for council and new counselors, like Councilor Bosman has said, this is continuation of really good work. It's kind of a relatively new group that we became members with. I want to say, was it 2 years ago, Marty? Maybe two, relatively recently. And I just, there had been some adjoining communities talking with me at CML and various organizations saying, you know, why is Durango not a part of this organization and engaged in these statewide conversations on climate action and sustainability? And so we took the steps to become members, and I think it's been a very good ad for Durango.
Any more discussion? Okay, can we call the vote?
Just a point of order real quick. Do we need to change the initial motion with the amendment that we're going to add?
There's a little bit of a gray area there, but as I understand the motion that is on the floor, it's to pass a resolution in support of this organization with a liaison to be determined at a later date. That's what you're voting to do.
Yes.
Yeah. Councilor Bosman's,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Buell,
Yes.
Councilor Woodruff,
Yes.
Councilor Yazzie,
Yes.
and Mayor Youssef.
Yes.
Okay, next item is 13.3. Discussion and possible action approving a resolution to amend the 2023 budget for the purpose of budget adjustments to the 2023 appropriations related to the Energy Performance Contract, EPC expenses. And this is Resolution 2023-23. Do we want to make a motion to approve R-2023-23?
So if I understand Mr. Morgan correctly, we make the motion first and then have discussion, correct?
Correct. You need a motion and a second to get the discussion on the floor. If you don't want to take action, then you just don't vote for it, or
Okay.
you don't get a second. So it's kind of implicit in the process. But at this point, a resolution has been read out. It needs a motion and a second. Then you can take your presentation, then you can have council discussion, and then you can vote.
Great. Is it okay for me to say I approve the motion as presented?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear what you said.
I should probably let someone else do it. I was going to make the motion to approve resolution 2023-23, I believe. Is that what you said? Mayor?
Yes.
Okay.
So it's moved. It needs a second.
Second,
Okay, presentation.
Thank you, Council, Mayor Youssef, Marty Poole, Sustainability Manager, City Manager's Office. So the energy performance contract has been discussed many times. This is the procedural process to actually appropriate the funds into or out of the fund that we will be using to actually pay for the project. And with two new counselors on board, I know you have both been following recent city council meetings, so I believe are familiar with this project, but wanted to give just a quick update before this vote on the appropriations resolution. Just run through the timeline of the energy performance contract. So this started back in actually 2017, 2018 was the review of the different ways that city facilities could increase energy efficiency and increase the amount of solar energy. So in McKinstry was selected through the Omnia competitive or cooperative purchasing program and the state of Colorado qualified EPC pre-qualification list. In November 19, council voted to approve the submitting of a DOLA grant, a Department of Local Affairs grant, specifically to fund an energy performance contract. That was what was written into the grant and what the grant would fund. So that was awarded in 2020. In 2021 and 2022, council requested additional analysis on alternatives to the EPC, and specifically because several of the buildings in the scope were under review for, it was uncertain future, the police station, River City Hall, the Carnegie building and such. And then also, could the city pursue this, a la carte, so to speak, or self-managed? So staff performed that analysis over the course of the year. And then in fall and winter of 2022, brought those findings before council for review. Council voted to proceed with moving forward, getting a new proposal from McKinstry. So McKinstry had looked at our facilities, brought forward a proposal for the upgrades they would be doing at our facilities. We looked at that scope, we reviewed it, and then council voted to formally have McKinstry bring a new scope with new pricing forward. Then that was, so voted on that in November. That updated scope was brought before council on March 21st. And then in April, council voted to approve the new proposed energy performance contract scope and pricing. So voted to enter into that contract, and then also went through the process of adopting an ordinance for the funding mechanism, which is the lease purchase, which is a financing mechanism where we get funding. Right now, Bank of America is the lowest apparent bidder on that process, and we're in negotiations to finalize that contract, but we would get funding from Bank of America. It's a lease on the equipment being installed, and then we would pay that back over time with interest. It's that combined with some upfront funding. So as far as the budget process, what will be happening is funds are appropriated out of the building maintenance fund. So the BMF that's located in the general fund, that is what's being voted on today. So the building maintenance fund will be writing the checks to McKinstry, so to speak. The building maintenance fund is also where the deposit on the lease purchase will come in. So when Bank of America gives us that lump sum to help pay for the project, that will go into the building maintenance fund. And this will all be tracked with its own code. Anything related to the EPC will be tracked specifically through our budget and accounting processes. The BMF coffers will be filled when we get that funding from upfront funding from the Bank of America. Also, when we get the DOLA reimbursement grant, and we're anticipating about $1.1 million of federal rebates from the Inflation Reduction Act, the IRA. So those will also come into that fund. There are also amounts coming in from in future years, funds coming in from the any facility fund. So for instance, the transportation fund, there are upgrades occurring at the transit center. We've agreed upon a cash flow plan with the transportation director of how those funds will be fed into the building maintenance fund so that enterprise fund is specifically paying for the projects that were done on that facility. And that will all be tracked through our accounting purposes. So those payments are made the checks are written out of the building maintenance fund. Then as lease purchase, again, we're getting money up front from Bank of America. We will owe money back with interest. Those payments will also be made out of the building maintenance fund. So here's a visualization of what I just described. I probably should have had that up while I was going through all that to help with the visual learners in the room. But again, on the left, here's currently what we have contributing into the building maintenance fund. The grants, the contributions from facilities, the lease purchase financing, and then we are also allocating a certain amount directly out of the building maintenance fund for general fund facilities. Those payments will be made to McKinstry for the work performed. And then in subsequent years and beyond, subject to future appropriations, we will continue to see funding come into the building maintenance fund, again, from those IRA rebates and remaining annual contributions from the impacted facilities in that internal agreement, cash flow agreement. And then the building maintenance fund will make any remaining payments to McKinstry for the work performed. That project will close out in 2024, but then we will have those lease payments on the equipment that we are paying off over time based on the agreement with Bank of America. So we'll continue to pay those out of the building maintenance fund until we've paid them off and the equipment is ours free and clear. So the resolution before you today are the appropriations specifically for 2023, and it will show the impact on the building maintenance fund specifically, and the two funds that are appropriating funds into the building maintenance fund for 2023. And that is the resolution before you. I can take any questions. We also have our acting CFO, Devin Schmidt, that can answer any questions around the budgeting process as well.
Thank you, Marty. Okay, let's open it up for discussion.
I have a couple of questions and then a discussion point. In the presentation, it shows that the Carnegie HVAC was removed from the scope with an associated cost, direct cost of 1.157 million. That's correct, yeah?
That's correct.
Now, the last EPC contract we had shows the cost as part of that 7 million project as 1.677 million. So I was wondering where the difference of the $500,000 shows.
Yeah, absolutely. So those are fixed construction costs. And the analogy that I would use is if we were all going on a vacation together and we got, a vacation rental, the cost of, if 10 of us are going, we all rent that vacation rental. And then we also have groceries and, other costs. If 2 people decide not to go on vacation, the cost of the vacation rental is still fixed. The cost of groceries and some other things may go down. So that is the analogy I think that makes the most sense to me, where there are certain costs that are directly associated with the Carnegie upgrades. And then there are costs that represent Carnegie as a proportional share of the fixed costs that are associated with the overall construction management, because this is a package program. So when we take when we take Carnegie out, those relative costs can be reduced. but there are certain upfront fixed overall project costs that can't be removed. And so there is a delta there. And because Carnegie was such a high percentage of the overall project cost, it's now not those, the portion of the fixed construction costs that it was carrying are now spread across all the remaining projects.
So when on the energy performance contract, when they have broken it out on different projects, where it says 1.677, we remove the actual HVAC cost, but we still pay the consultant what you call management fee or however that is called. That seems like a lot of money to have stay with the consultant, because it was my understanding that the biggest chunk is pre-construction, design, engineering, and all of that is no longer needed if the HVAC is not going to take place. So if you're saying that the HVAC, because the HVAC project was, I think, $750,000 bid by a contractor, and we have it as 1.6 million as part of the EPC contract, it means that the consultant gets even more than double just for managing it versus more engineering cost and design cost.
So staff requested and received a breakdown of the justification of those costs, and we reviewed those, and we thought that that was appropriate. Again, it comes down to, though there are high fixed costs associated with those different construction costs associated with the project overall. And when those were just broken out proportionally and assigned to different projects on just a percentage basis, Carnegie was carrying a larger portion of those because the Carnegie was the largest, if not the largest, one of the largest single projects. And so you had asked earlier if the Carnegie cost was the $740,000 value shown in Schedule F of the contract. And we were saying that was, labor and materials. McKinstry is removing an additional 400, whatever the delta is between $740,000 shown in Schedule F and the 1.1 million that's being removed because Carnegie is being removed. So they are reducing those construction services prices by a certain amount, but they can't reduce them by, there are certain fixed costs that they can't reduce any further. So staff saw that review. We found it justifiable, and
I find that one of the many concerns I have with this project, but I'll let other councillors discuss it, and I'll make a finishing discussion point.
Any other comments from other councillors?
Yes, I have a comment. Okay, so you're saying that part of the original contract, which was including the Carnegie building, got removed from the proposal tonight, and the staff looked at the reduction of the cost, but it wasn't coming out, I guess, even across the board there. And you say that those costs are justified?
Yeah, so it comes down to the fact that this project is a combination of essentially 30 individual projects. And so there are costs that are, I'd say there are three types of costs. There are costs that are directly associated with a given project. So the equipment, for instance, if you're not installing that equipment on a certain project, that is directly associated with the cost of that project. Then there are proportional construction management costs that are associated with a given project and can be reduced a certain amount if that project isn't taking place. So for instance, design engineering, if the Carnegie project is not being done, you don't need at this time engineers to draft up plans and do engineering review and things like that. And then there are just overall project fixed costs, which if you add or remove any given project, those won't go down or up. So there are like insurance and require, the cost of having insurance as a construction management. There's mobilization costs. There are McKinstry will essentially have the same number of staff here staying for the same amount of time to perform construction management, regardless if we add or remove a one or two projects from the overall scope. So the challenge in saying a given project costs this amount is because this project is a combination of several projects. How we draw those lines, it depends. It depends on how things are being packaged as much as the individual project itself.
Just one more question. Okay, so you're saying the original bid project is not what's being presented tonight. And if that's true, what's the cost difference between the original bid cost and the cost tonight?
So the original overall price of the project was just over $7 million. By removing Carnegie, we have a final project price of not to exceed $5,884,850. So that is the new price that's being voted on tonight by removing the Carnegie scope.
Can I ask just one question for my clarity? The council already approved the contract for this work at that amount. Is that correct?
They approved a contract at a not to exceed amount of $7 million. And there is a provision in that contract that Carnegie is on a separate notice to proceed and could be removed or put on the shelf. Yeah.
And I just want to add, I worked in construction for 7 years. And so if like you went into a project and to like build, let's say the Mercury payment system, just because I was on that project building and they valued engineered a bunch of money off of that project, it doesn't change your like management costs. Like you still have a project engineer, project manager, superintendent, like all those costs stay the same, just your value engineering some like different tile for the floor or whatever. So some clarity there that happens all the time. So Mayor Youssef, did you have anything?
Thank you. No, but I do believe that, I think it was Mark Morgan who brought it up, that we previously approved this at the last meeting. So this is just to amend the 2023 budget for the purpose of the budget adjustments, if I'm understanding correctly, right?
That's correct. We're appropriating the funding for the contract that was approved at the last council meeting.
Okay. So yeah, no, I have no further questions.
Okay, so we're approving $5,840,000 approximately instead of 7 million.
That's correct. Yep.
There we go.
I have one last comment, but I'll let.
I look at it like camping, like when you go camping, it doesn't matter if you go camping for 1 day or for 4 days, you need the same amount of equipment, no matter how many days you're. So that's just kind of how I'm rationalizing in my head that you're going to need all of that equipment regardless, so to me, it's like the same. So I finally get what you're trying to say with those fixed costs and not being able to waver from what you need.
And I'll just comment real quickly what my question was about. And it was me who asked about the contracts for signed. And this happens all the time in government. You've entered into a contract for a not to exceed amount. My concern is if something goes off the rails and you guys don't vote to appropriate the money, then you're going to be calling me when their attorney calls us and says, hey, we have a contract with you and you haven't paid us or you haven't agreed to pay us. So at this point, you're really just discussing allocating the funds, which are less than the up to amount. So you're certainly welcome to put anything on the record that you don't like that, or you think it's not right. But if this was to fail tonight, there are much larger issues we'd have to deal with.
Thank you very much for that clarification.
So first I have a little set of comments. I'll try and make it brief because I've done this several times now, and I do want it for the record. First of all, if I build something for an X amount of money and I double the cost for the consultant to do that, and then I take away half of the consultant's cost because he takes away, it doesn't make sense. The markup and the additional cost for the consultant is beyond belief. We have discussed the lease purchase agreement and financing on various occasions. I strongly disagree with the way we are financing this. It's a long-term financial commitment of up to around 9.1 million. I'm speaking of the initial numbers, just so we know. 9.1 million, part of which is the lease. And the lease without voter approval, which would be required if it were to be a bond. It is for a $7 million EPC contract, which is being reduced, obviously, of which more than half is going to the consultant. These numbers include probably what I would have expected, 2 million going to buildings with an uncertain future. And those will be removed partially, 1.1 million. I believe that we have about 97 million in total fund balance, partially restricted, and we can fund this directly without taking a lease purchase agreement, especially since these costs are not incurred all at once. As an example, the combined water fund has around 17 million, and the second key project in this contract is the solar panels at the water treatment plant. And City Council, another example, recently transferred 3.2 million from the opportunity fund to housing, very correct cause, but not being deployed, as I understand, immediately. So even though I understand there are no, oh, and this is the other one. So that money would be sitting there. I will absolutely vote against this motion because I just do not even remotely see the financial sense it makes or the way we're using taxpayers' money. And I would suggest City Council provide direction to staff and the Finance Advisory Board to review, identify, and present to Council the funds that can be made available, are available. And if any of the new I've spoken to this on the initial council, if any of the new councillors have questions why I make this statement, feel free to ask. If not, it's perfectly fine. Thank you.
Okay, roll call vote, please.
Councillor Bosman's. Mayor Pro Tem Buell,
Yes.
Councillor Woodruff,
Yes.
Councillor Yazzie,
Yes.
and Mayor Youssef.
Yes.
Thank you, Council.
Okay, moving on. We are on item 14, council reports and actions. Each council member is provided an opportunity to report on meetings recently attended, to discuss topics not otherwise appearing on the agenda. So 14.1 is board and commission council liaison reports. Mayor Youssef, do you want to start with the library advisory board meeting?
Sure, except for I did not attend that last library advisory board, and I don't believe our library director was able to attend it either. So no update for you on that one tonight.
No problem. I'm going to take a moment and talk for quite some time because I had a lot of meetings I went to, clearly. All the rest are mine. Okay, so first was the multimodal advisory board meeting on April 19th, 2023. We just had like a general meeting. No action was taken at the meeting, but we discussed the transition plan for boards and commissions. Sarah Kelly, Martha Mason had some great discussion items with me and Devin and Sarah Hill. We have a great transition plan going into effect, so that's great. We talked about the multimodal transportation plan update. which is going to be done around the end of April, which was last week. And so it should be getting complete soon. They're making the language more inclusive. It used to be, and I heard this a ton when I was well over the years, but that our multimodal transportation plan was that any middle-aged school student could like get from the north end of town to wherever the south end of town safe. And they're changing that language, going to more like any race, ethnicity, age, gender, and ability can make it from one end of town to another in various modes of transportation. So I liked the direction they were going. They did a Durango Next Steps update. They're almost finished with surveying. They have a preliminary parking study and traffic analysis going. For transits, from June to August, they're doing free transit. We did a month of that, I think, last summer. Is that correct? Do you remember? I think it was a month of that, and it was super successful. So they're doing a month or June to August, so pretty much all summer long. There's some route changes. 160 route is going to have expanded service into Crestview starting May 1st. The mall stop is moving to the La Quinta due to the mall saying that there's liability issues. So just FYI, you'll be dropped off at the La Quinta rather than the mall now. Okay. They're also working, I thought this was really cool because I do a ton of when I'm traveling to places, I do a ton of transit on apps. And so they're doing on-demand transit on an app software. Basically it's going to be 8 p.m. to 12 p.m. for the summer. They're doing like a testing on it, and with expansion potential past that, there's going to be virtual bus stops. So like no matter where you're at in Durango, there's like a geofence, and the longest walk you'll have to make is like 50 yards so you can request a ride on transit anytime between 8 p.m. and 12 p.m. on this app, and they'll come and pick you up at this location that it tells you on the app. I know. I'm like, we are so fancy now. So exciting. It is. And then let's see.
The transit, Mayor Pro Tem, Yoel, if I can just add a little bit of just a clarification, the liability issue was a letter from the mall ownership asking us not to stop in their parking lot or offering that we would be allowed to if we plowed their parking lot during the winter. So we made the decision to go ahead and just move the stop to the La Quinta instead.
Sorry, I didn't know how much I should just like say. So there you go.
Want to make
Get
sure
it.
that it doesn't look like it was something that the city actively did.
No. Yes, thank
but
you.
that was-
Sorry.
No,
Yeah,
no
I was
worries,
trying
no
to
worries.
yeah. Okay. I'll be more authentic. All right. Next one I went to was the Airport Commission meeting on April 20th. We talked about there's a hangar development proposal that we approved for 4 non-commercial hangars and 1 commercial hangar. We talked about the phase 1B design review on the GMP, I think, is going to be out on March 1st. That I think is the one that we have coming to City Council about funding options potentially in the next study session. And the Airport Commission has been doing a ton of work on that, working with Tony and like vetting some potential funding options on that. So it'll be interesting to see what council thinks. We did the gift shop rental RFP review. It's going month to month because of the renovations, because they're going to have more gift shops and areas and stuff. We did an airport staffing review, and we approved all the staffing requests that Tony made and changes. And then we had the groundbreaking ceremony that Councilor Yazzie and I were at for 1A, and that was super exciting. It's a great show of just how like county, city, Southern Ute Indian Tribe, Airport Commission, state, everyone was there. It was just like a great project that really is a partnership in so many ways. And so that was fun to go to that. Then I had the Creative Economy Commission on April 25th. We did the Creative Durango Creates Grant award. There was 10 submissions that asked for $40,000, over $40,000, and we only had 17,000 to go out. So that's just showing you like how many more people are starting to ask for these grants, which have been so great to see these projects starting and going in our community. And so the commission went through them all. We awarded, I think we actually awarded, because we have 35,000 total to hand out, and we usually do 2 rounds. And so I think we actually awarded a little bit over $17,500. But yeah, a lot of great projects coming to fruition there. And then I think the last thing I wanted to bring up, let me see, multimodal airport. Creative Economy Commission, is that on Saturday I spoke and then actually played at Parks and Rec put on their first golf tournament at Hillcrest, and they it is for scholarships for disadvantaged youth, and they give $100 scholarships for youth to participate in swimming lessons or rec center passes or Chapman Hill passes. And that this was the first year doing that fundraiser, and just from, and I only know this because Ellen yelled it at me as I was walking away, but just from the mulligan sales, so you can like buy mulligans, right? Just from that, they were able to give like 20 more scholarships than they had last year. I know. So I think it'll be a super successful, and it was fun. I got to play with a bunch of Parks and Rec staff, so that was awesome. So, okay. I talked long enough. Anything else from council? All right. So now we're on to item 15, the executive session. So I'm going to ask council to consider 3 items to go into executive session for. We will read each executive session, and then if there's a motion and a second and it passes, then we'll go on to the second one and then the third one, and then we'll go into executive session for whatever ones we decide. Did I outline that right?
Yes.
Okay, great. Perfect. So the first one we'll talk about is 15.1, discussion and possible action concerning a motion to convene an executive session to discuss the purchase, acquisition, lease, sale, or transfer of an interest in real property located at 1235 Camino del Rio and 201 East 12th Street. Do I have a motion? And it, what?
Time out. Why don't you read the whole thing?
Okay. Sorry, here we go.
And let me just explain. 'Cause
Yes.
I learned this today.
Okay.
The way the agenda generator makes you limited on characters, and there are more that needs to be read into the record before we can formally go into executive session. So you need to pick up and start reading after the word street.
Street, 9R Administration Building, and to determine positions relative to matters that may be subject to negotiation and direct negotiators as permitted by CRS 24-6-402 4A and E.
I make a motion to convene an executive session to discuss the purchase, acquisition, lease, sale, or transfer of an interest in real property located at 1235 Camino del Rio, River City Hall, and 201 East 12th Street, 9R Administration Building, and to determine positions relative to matters that may be subject to negotiation and direct negotiators as permitted by CRS 24-6-402 4A and E.
I'll second. Go ahead, Gilda, since she's live.
Do we have a vote?
So there's no discussion.
Oh,
you just
no,
vote.
no discussion. Yeah, yeah. Okay, can I have the vote?
Counselor Bosman's,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Buell,
Yes.
Counselor Woodruff,
Yes.
Counselor Yazzie,
Yes.
Mayor Youssef.
Yes.
Okay, the second one I'd like to consider, council to consider is discussion and possible action concerning a motion to convene in executive session to discuss the purchase, acquisition, lease, sale, or transfer of an interest in real property located in downtown Durango that is currently leased to the Durango and Silverton Narrow Gauge Railroad Company for parking, and to determine positions relative to matters that may be subject to negotiation and direct negotiators as permitted by CRS 24-6-402 4A and E.
So we need a motion.
Yeah, we need a motion.
I make a motion to convene an executive session to discuss the purchase, acquisition, lease, sale, or transfer of an interest in real property located in downtown Durango that is currently leased to the Durango and Silverton Narrow Gauge Railroad Company for parking, and to determine positions relative to matters that may be subject to negotiation and direct negotiators as permitted by CRS 24-6-402 4A and E.
Second,
Can I have a roll call?
Counselor Bosman's,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Buell,
Yes.
Counselor Woodruff,
Yes.
Counselor Yazzie,
yes.
and Mayor Youssef.
Yes.
Okay, and then the third I'd like to consider is discussion and possible action concerning a motion to convene an executive session to discuss the purchase, acquisition, lease, sale, or transfer of an interest in real property located at 1188 East Second Avenue, Carnegie Building, and Buckley Park at 12th Street and Main Avenue, and to determine positions relative to matters that may be subject to negotiation and direct negotiators as permitted by CRS 24-6-402 4A and E.
I make a motion to convene an executive session to discuss the purchase, acquisition, lease, sale, or transfer of an interest in real property located at 1188 East Second Avenue, Carnegie Building, and Buckley Park at 12th Street and Main Avenue, and to determine positions relative to matters that may be subject to negotiation and direct negotiators as permitted by CRS 24-6-402 4A and E.
Second,
Can I have a vote?
Counselor Bosman's,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Buell.
Yes.
Counselor Woodruff,
Yes.
Counselor Yazzie,
yes.
and Mayor Youssef.
Yes.
Okay, and now you need to note the time.
Okay, it is 7:10 PM and we are going into executive session. Melissa said that the meeting expired.
What?
The meeting expired. Maybe send her the link.
For this one right now?
I got it.
Melissa, can you hear us?
You
Yeah,
know,
I got it. Thank you. Sorry, I got it.
always.
Look, I have a beer, but people are sitting next to me, listen, I don't have three of them.
We have.
Okay, are we we're live, we're recording, everything looks good. Here we go, hang on. The time is now 7:59 PM and the executive session has been concluded. The participants in the executive session were Dave Woodruff, Mark Morgan, Jose Madrigal, Olivier Bosmans, Scott Shine, Aaron Hyder, Gilda Yazzie, and Melissa Youssef, and myself. For the record, council met in executive session. Discussion and to discuss and have possible action concerning a motion to convene an executive session to discuss the purchase, acquisition, lease, sale, or transfer of an interest in real property located at 1235 Camino del Rio, River City Hall, and 201 East 12th Street, 9R Administration Building, and to determine positions relative to matters that may be subject to negotiation and direct negotiators as permitted by CRS 24-6-402 4A and E. In this executive session, direction was given to staff to continue to negotiate with the DFPD under the terms discussed in executive session. The second executive session, the same participants were present and council met in executive session for discussion and possible action concerning a motion to convene an executive session to discuss the purchase, acquisition, lease, sale, or transfer of an interest in real property located in downtown Durango that is currently leased to the Durango and Silverton Narrow Gauge Railroad Company for parking, and to determine positions relative to matters that may be subject to negotiation and direct negotiators as permitted by CRS 24-6-402 4A and E. In this executive session, direction was given to staff to move forward with these discussions. The third executive session. For the record, council met, the same participants were present, and we met for discussion and possible action concerning a motion to convene an executive session to discuss the purchase, acquisition, lease, sale, or transfer of an interest in real property located at 1188 East Second Avenue, Carnegie Building, and Buckley Park at 12th Street and Main Avenue to determine positions relative to matters that may be subject to negotiation and direct negotiators as permitted by CRS 24-6-402 4A and E. In this executive session, no direction was given. For the record, if any person who participated in the executive sessions believes that any substantial discussion of any matters not included in the motion to go into the executive session occurred during the executive session, or that any improper action occurred during the executive session in violation of the open meetings law, I would ask that you state your concerns for the record. Seeing none, the next item on the agenda is adjournment. So have a great night.
Thank you. Good night.
Good.